And welcome to another episode of SPCs Unleashed. Today it is the reprise of episode 4 in the Lean-Agile Leadership competency, and we are talking about mindset, values, and principles. And after quite a while today, Ali is back hosting. So let's see what surprises he has in store for us. Over to you, Ali.
Yes, thank you, and hi everybody. That is, of course, my mates and whomever is watching or listening to this podcast. Today we're talking indeed about an MVP. Yes, mindset, values, and principles. Within this show, we'll be talking about, therefore, visions. We'll be talking about mindset and values. However, we're going to talk about it beyond the fluff. We're going to talk about it beyond the fluff, beyond the softness of these topics. So we're going to see and hear quite a bit about skills that are actually quite easy to understand, but very hard to implement in day-to-day life. And what I've liked in all of the preparation work from my mates over here is that we really went back to all types of sometimes even very awkward scenarios of how these concepts, let's say, exist in real life. So we'll hear from Mark about the difficulties, but also the strength of sticking to your values and tricks on how to guide your leadership to frequently reflect on them. We'll hear from Niko about the power of reflection and how that is learned and how that is, well, not enforced. And we'll hear from Stephan about how he again has brilliant parallels amongst a brigade general. So I think your time from the army, and how that nicely bridges with change agents in corporate companies. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the Lean-Agile Leadership core competency, and more specifically about the mindset, values, and principle dimension. Um, uh, just in summary, what is this dimension all about? Mindset, values, and principles talks about embedding the lean agile way of working in the beliefs of people, in the decisions that people make, in the responses and actions, and leadership models that from which we expect a certain norm, a certain behavior throughout the organization. And when we were trying to, let's say, prepare for all of this, I was just trying to search for a nice example that might really resonate with specifically this dimension. And I found Patagonia. Has any one of you ever had any Patagonia clothing or materials before? Yeah, I see a
I,
couple of
Of course.
I,
nodding heads.
I've
Yeah,
studied their
yeah.
whole manifesto, actually, the
I fully understand. What
the
do you think
stewardship
about
model.
Patagonia? I mean, yeah. Go ahead and highlight us. Give us a brief, let's say, sort of observation of what you thought of Patagonia.
I just loved, we studied their stewardship model, the way that they're incorporated as a company, and they're held out as really one of the examples of the structure to a company. And, you read a little bit more and they're so serious about living their values. That's what was inspiring
Yeah,
to me. Like great values and really they've embedded them into their corporate way of life.
yeah. Thanks, Mark. How about Nico? I think you've raised your hand as well.
Nope.
Although Stefan.
Yeah, the founder of Patagonia wrote the book "Let My People Go Surfing." Just read it; it's awesome. It shows the attitude of a leader creating such an amazing company, and I love it.
Nice. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's this show is by no means sponsored by this company.
But
Even though
if
they
you
can,
if you'd
of
like to
course.
sponsor us, reach out.
Exactly.
We're in.
Now, it's a brand that it's really known for spending a lot of time and resources on making good quality products that are very durable and for which you have a huge like sometimes even a lifetime guarantee. At least, and all the way in the beginning, that was the case. But they really focus on repairability and on using, let's say, good materials, hence good for the environment. So there's so many good examples that that we can draw, let's say, inspiration from with respect to this dimension. However, we're gonna cover a couple of those examples during this episode. So I'm going to give the microphone to you first, Mark, because we would like to hear about your sort of true passion, special moment, surprise, challenge with respect to this dimension.
So obviously the dimensions, mindsets, values, principles, but it's part of the Lean-Agile Leadership competency. And it's one of the things I've loved about SAFE since the early days. It's really emphasized the importance of leadership modeling these things. But if I stay back in those early days, my first big experience with corporate agile, we had a lot of leaders come into the training room. This was pre-SAFE. And we talked to them about, this is what servant leadership looks like. And there was often feedback to go, I've got this agile coach who's never been a senior leader telling me to be a different type of leader, right? And it was interesting to navigate. But one of the secrets that I've really found over the years with coaching is if you can find an existing leader whose values really already line up well, and then you can lean in to help them be successful, they can influence their peers down the path of the mindset, values, and principles, and the leadership teams who report to them far more effectively than you ever can yourself. So that's my passion. Find a leader who already has amazing values and lives them, and then help them become super successful and inspire others around them.
Nice. Find somebody who is already sort of aligned and on the right track and guide them to take the next step, or maybe translate that into lean agile values.
Yeah.
Nice. Niko, how about you?
I can connect with that what Mark said before. In my case, I'm dealing with leaders on the way finding their own values, on the way becoming a leader or changing the kind of leadership. So people having time to work until they retire, and they have to change their leadership style, or people just became leader, promoted leader, and asking themselves, why the heck am I promoted? I'm completely different than my boss. What should I do? And then we are in the field of systemic coaching, which is one of my passions. And to find your own values, you must be also open to reflect on yourself, to find your blind spots. For that, you need more people. Finding your own blind spot is difficult because you don't see it. That's the idea of a blind spot. So you need working with other people. And for that, I think an important thing is to say coaching is not a weakness, illness. It's something completely normal. It's a strength. And when I had my education or becoming a systemic coach, I had somebody from Geneva, the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and she told me leaders in the CV have a line there, he has been coached, and that's a strength. And this time in the German-speaking part of Switzerland, I felt coaching is like, oh God, he's mental ill, he needs help. Oh gosh, let him help find his way back because he's a poor guy. And in Geneva, she told me, yeah, if you don't have on your CV has been coached, then you're not worth being a leader. And I liked to see same country but different cultures, and I hope at some point people will see coaching as it's normal, it's a strength being coached, and not something is wrong. It's like doing a retro. Nobody says, "Oh gosh, you're doing a retro. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. That must be difficult with your team." It's normal. You do one, and that's yeah. You see, I'm talking longer. I'm talking faster. It's really my passion.
Nice. Thank you, Niko. Yeah, indeed. As in, um, being coached is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that things are going badly. Being coached is
Exactly.
actually the deliberate, let's say, time and energy spent in finding ways to become better.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. How about you, Stefan?
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me pick up that thread from Mark and Nico. I think True leaders are open walking books. Why is that? You can read what they stand for and they exemplify it, right? It's 100% congruent. But they also have, as Niko said, they have blank pages in their book. They have to be written. And I've learned from the All Blacks that if you join the team, I don't know if it's nowadays, but in the old days, you were given a book with all the jerseys in it of the old times, reminding you what you stand for, and then a lot of blank pages with the kind of, they told them, now you have to write the history. You have to exemplify what we stand for. And I like true leaders because a rank is nothing, right? A status is nothing. I've seen so many people in the army, in sports, in professional life, telling you, hey, this is my rank, you have to do this and that. It doesn't work. So open walking books, that's what I'm looking for.
I like that. I like that. Thank you. And because I think I see there's a lot of parallels actually amongst the passions that all of you have. I share this. I share a very similar one because I somehow I have a soft spot for people that have a set of values and that stick to it, even if it's unpopular, if it's the unpopular choice, and it's over time, and that's the unfortunate thing, because over time that becomes respected, but in the heat of the moment it's just annoying. But over time it's seen as a person who really stuck to their values and continued on a certain path with a certain intention. I'm kind of curious what kind of examples we have. So let's let's um, um, let's go to the first trigger that we have. The trigger of whether you can share an example of a person who really stuck to their values and principles, even though it was initially perceived as counterproductive. And I'll start with you, Mark. Would you be able to give an
So,
example?
so I don't know if it was that it was perceived as initially counterproductive, but I think perception's a really good piece of the puzzle in that. So the story that I instantly went to was an executive at a government agency. And when I started working in government, what I found was it was traditionally incredibly hierarchical. And there were protocols. And if you were wanting to speak to somebody from another part of the agency, before you initiated a conversation, you had to go up the chain. And you would say, I want to talk to such and such, to your boss. And they would say to their boss, can we have clearance to have this conversation? And then eventually, when it went all the way up and all the way back down, it was like, yes, you two can talk. And we're not talking junior levels, right? Because there was the workhorse of this particular agency, the level of seniority was called an EL2 or executive level 2. Their title was director. Really, they were the senior middle management who made the system work. And most of them were 15, 20-year veterans. They'd come up in this world of incredible hierarchy. And a lot of them were really excited about the change possibilities of Agile, but they were so constrained by their history and the perception of what was and wasn't feasible that they really struggled. And of course, the instant we went cross-functional with our arts, we had multiple areas in the same art, and we were breaking a lot of rules because people were talking to each other without permission. But the executive who was sponsoring this particular art was an amazing guy, really phenomenal leader. And my first encounter with him, I'd talked to his people, and it was 3 of his directors, and they were launching their first art, and they thought they could do it alone. They called me 2 weeks before they were planning to launch, going, can you just do a last double check for us? And I looked at where they were, and I said, you can't launch. And they went, no, we've got to launch. I said, no, you can't. It's going to be a fiasco. They said, we've got to. And I said, why do you have to? And they said, because our executive told us to. And I said, well, can you talk to your executive and, have a conversation about the repercussions of trying to go now? No, we can't do that. And so I went, okay, this guy is going to be an ogre because these people are so fearful actually having a conversation with him. And when they launched, it was a fiasco. It was one of only 2 ever PI planning launches that I've seen not work out. And that's its whole story. But I got chatting to this guy during a quiet moment. And I'm like, this is a really great leader who really wants a different future for his people. How is it possible that they had not realized? And this was not the only time, but it was the first time I'd really encountered that scenario of a senior executive leader who wanted something new with layers below them that had no clue who they really were. And so they were lived in fear of stepping out into new things. And it's like this journey of going, let me help you understand who this is that you work for. And the moment that really sticks in my head was we're at a management review. And management review, my job is always easy. How many actions can I stick on a senior leader to make life better for their teams? Right. And we're sitting there, and this was, I think, their second or third PI, and long list of actions. And this leader, his name was Richard, he turns around and he says, what do we do to hold ourselves accountable to the teams for these actions? And his staff look at him and he goes, well, every 2 weeks we get a system demo and they show us what they've done and they tell us how they're going and, keep us in the loop. Shouldn't we be telling them what we've done on their behalf as leaders? And so he triggered an action, which was include in every system demo leadership reporting back to teams about the actions they'd completed on their behalf. So
Nice.
that's my story.
Great. That's great.
Nice. Thank you. A way to, step away from the posture that you might get from a hierarchical position, and to try to break that, be a little bit more vulnerable, rather than everyone else reporting into you, actually now reporting into everyone else. I like that. So therefore the bridge is made very, very easily. Stephan, you had a story about your brigade general. Would you be able to share that one with us?
Yeah, it ties into the value of alignment and creating an environment for people to feel safe, right? So at that time, the Swiss Army underwent a major restructuring, and there's a lot of sources like politics, different perspectives, lobbying when it comes to reshaping the army. And our brigade general, he was really to the point, very focused. So we knew what he was expecting from us as leaders. And although the environment wasn't clear, it was fluffy, a lot of influence from different people, we had a sound base how to work over those 2 to 3 years. And I really appreciated that. Having a focal point as a person, again, as I said, an open book. I knew what he expected us to do. You didn't have to ask for permission. You didn't have to go up the chain, as you just mentioned, Mark. We knew it was the right thing. If we were insecure, yes, then address your boss and ask for permission or ask for help. And I think alignment is not a natural state. One of these values we value very highly in the safe environment. It's down to leadership. If leadership doesn't exemplify that, if they don't embody that, if they don't present that, what is alignment then? So yeah, I owe a lot to this person.
Thanks for the example. Yeah, it's tough to let things go, I guess, and to show trust, even demand sort of action from the people that you work with. I had a situation that is very similar to what Mark just mentioned. Was also happened during a management review, during a PI planning, where I had a business owner who was leading and owning an extremely high-profile deliverable that really had to be part of upcoming PI, not be part of the PI anymore. Why? Because rather than the standard behavior of being like, we have a deadline, we need to deliver this PI because reason XYZ. There was actually a couple of engineers who clearly stated a very significant risk. And there were just a few, I think there was 2 or 3 engineers that would be busy with that deliverable. They saw a huge risk and they addressed it. This is something that we can't it's not smart to try to finish this PI, has big impact on quality and so forth and so forth. So let's really take some time on this specific technology. And the business owner took that seriously. He's like, we're not going to incorporate this deliverable in the plans for the upcoming PI. Why? Because my engineers state that it is just too tricky. Let's not do that. It's not wise. Let's just not do that. And I like that stance a lot because, and it's just, I memorize it very well because it was a high profile deliverable. It was sort of almost one of the main focuses for upcoming quarter. And then still the business owner is like, no, I'm listening to my people. If they state that it is not smart to do, we're not going to do it. We're not going to include that in upcoming PI. And that generates, that generated a weird environment, silence in the room, and everyone's like, but now we need to replan everything. What are you talking about? But stuck to the point. And there was respectful people. I like that. Niko, how about you? Do you have an example of a person who really stuck to their values?
Yeah. When I read your question or your trigger, I thought, there's a fine line between being stubborn and sticking to your values. And I think that's an important thing I want to share. It was a project leader this time. Yes, a project in an agile environment. It was the first project that tried in an agile way, but outside of the official agile transformation was also a cool thing, having people with passion, not people having to doing it. And he was the project leader, and he had some ideas what he wants to change. And he really sticked on his value and mixed IT and business people, mixed finance sources. And he really had many people behind him telling him, you're crazy, you cannot mix IT budget and business budget, what are you doing here? And he did some things, but other things he didn't, even if it was on his values. He just realized, if I'm doing too much, I will be just some guy doing calling Amokläufer in German, just shooting around and trying to do stupid things, even if it's the good things. So sometimes, even if you know your values and your the exapparation on this planet, sometimes you have to think, let's not give away this value, but a little bit later. Just stick on your ideas. Let others win too, that you can win at the end the whole game. And it was really great to see how he played with that. Not played, how natural it was for him to say, okay, this time I lose a fight, but at the end I will win the whole project. And it was great. It was really one of the best teams I was in, and I coached. They achieved a lot of stuff, and he was really a key part of the whole endeavor.
Yeah. Thanks, Niko. It is tough to stick with your values in the tyranny of the urgent, how Reinerton calls it nicely. It might make you unpopular, but simultaneously it allows you to become predictable in a way.
Yes.
So how about your teams? I wonder whether your teams, and let me rephrase, how your teams would reflect on mindset, values, and principles. And how do they do that? And if they deviate, how do they figure that out? And giving the microphone to Mark.
All right. So I was very sad when this disappeared, but for many years there was an activity in Leading Safe where you talk through the House of Lean, and then you get the participants to self-assess. Right? Where is your organization, or where's your part of the organization doing on the values, living the values from the House of Lean? And you'd get them to self-reflect, and then you'd get them to chat to each other about their scores. And it was a very provocative exercise. It used to be a great kind of wake the room up. But I think for me, there's an example there. Quite often, retrospectives become very focused on process and how do we make the process better. But I love to periodically see it in a retrospective at any level, which is to say, how are we doing living the values? And, where are the values we're really struggling with and why are we struggling with them and what can we do to change that? So building in that periodic, go back to the values, go back to the values, go back to the values, ask yourself, and look for ways to lean into it.
And you do
I would
that according using a sort of I don't know, a scale, a maturity model, or something else.
Look, literally for me, it could be just here's the House of Lean, scale from 1 to 5. How are we doing living those values for this art?
Got it.
And then you zero in and you go, gee, we're doing really badly at X. Well, why is it that we're doing really badly at X? Maybe let's do a root cause analysis there. Let's see what we can change. Because I think the other aspect to there is particularly what I've always found: the more senior the people you're coaching, the more your conversation rests in principles rather than practices, and they resonate so easily. And going to that, well, let's look at the principles, and maybe it's batch size trade-offs and lean U curves. And how do you put the principle at the center of the conversation? Understand a situation through the lens of the principle, and then figure out your next steps based on that.
Thanks, Mark. I think, was it you, Stephan, who wanted to say
Yeah,
something more?
I like this approach that Mark just presented. I would go a notch up, right? Don't wait for the retrospective. Do it more often. In my early days as a coach, I had this bad attitude where I tried to fix stuff, telling people this is not the right way, do it the other way around. And I got smarter over the time by some help from other coaches. And because I saw teams and arts being very, innovative, right? They come up with lots of ideas during the transformation. And I learned to ask the question, is there any value or principle supporting the change you bring into this context now? For example, they came up with, we have lots of arts. We don't have the portfolio management up and ready. Let's create cross-product managers. Why is that? We had a bunch of project managers being out of their work, no more projects. Okay, what do we do with these guys? Okay, they become cross-product managers. And I asked, okay, what are they doing? Yeah, they are coordinating product managers between the arts, in the arts, so they have something to do. And I said, okay, where's the principle? Where's the value? And there was silence in the room. And I said, okay, probably not a good idea. What should we discuss now? And they started discussing, probably we misunderstood what a PM does. A PM is coordinating with other PMs. You don't need another hierarchy above that, right? And let's stick to the values, let's stick to the principles. And this helped me a lot in the past. Just go back now and then, even more often than a retrospective. What's the value behind it? What's the principle? Or what's the combination? And then come up with your solution or how we transition into the future.
When I listen to
Nice.
you two both, I think the secret ingredients is just time. Stop doing what you are doing, taking as time or a meeting or whatever to stop doing what you're doing, your daily work, and
Yep.
continue continue with continuous improvement, taking time to reflect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly, Nico. People are so busy. It's like a frenzy, right? Let's do something. Let's jump to conclusions. No, let's talk about values and principles because it's not that tangible. And I guess that's the big issue here as well.
And
Yeah.
I thought when I read about this in the pre-preparation, I thought I should bring one of my own stories because we as SPCs should also be role models. We are also leaders some kind of a way because we help people leading transformations. And what I'm doing since years or for years is whenever I'm too long in a mandate, and too long for me is 2 quarters of a year, I'm starting being part of the system. So I'm losing, so my vision gets narrow. And to go back to my own principles or go back to the principles we are living in this company, I need somebody from outside. So what I'm doing after 3/4 of a year, I'm starting bringing in colleagues of mine for free. I tell the clients it's a quality measurement or a quality thing that somebody will come with me for free and check how I'm doing and check how you're doing. And this, of course, needs also time. It needs time for pre-preparation that my colleague knows which words are. Please don't tell them there are taboos. Sometimes you're not allowed to say kaizen. Sometimes you're not allowed to say value streams because just they had some initiatives before we were there and they just burned out these words. And then you need also time to reflect about what you have done. And it's a win-win for both sides. It's not that a teacher comes and observes you and then you got your grades. Uh, every time when I did this, it was a win-win for both sides. So I've seen things again and I opened my vision again. And the colleague said, wow, that's a different style of doing this kind of workshop. Oh, I've never thought that's also a way of doing it. And so, okay, how you are doing it. Oh, okay, maybe I'll try it next time differently, or maybe I coach other people differently. So it's really a win-win. So yeah, so take this time also for yourself to make a break. Take your time, reflect, and yeah, in my case, I take a peer with me after some time.
That's a
Nice.
beautiful connection to. There's a Jerry Weinberg saying, and he says it: if you put a cucumber in the pickle barrel long enough, it'll become a pickle. It doesn't matter how much the cucumber doesn't want to become a pickle. After long enough, it will be.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's being institutionalized. Remember quite a nice quote from The Shawshank Redemption, where Red talks about the walls of the prison, where eventually you hate them in the beginning, then you get used to them, and then eventually you depend on them, being institutionalized. So I hear in your stories, like actually that it requires either a habit or maybe even somebody else to help people to reflect, to help people to, Stefan, what you mentioned, to think about um, out of the behavior or the decisions that we are making, what kind of values are supporting it. It doesn't come naturally, apparently. It requires a trigger. It requires some help, maybe a coach who specifically schedules a moment even for it. So why don't people tend to use principles and values naturally, but rather focus on what was mentioned just now, practices and meetings and structures? I'm gonna start with you, Mark. What do you think?
It's a start with me day to day, isn't it?
Yep.
Leading.
Look, I'm gonna go to martial arts for a second, right? And
Nice.
Alistair Cockburn made the whole idea of shuhari very popular. Learn the rules, be the rules, break the rules. Well, learn the rules, break the rules, be the rules. And I did karate for years and years and years. And if you do karate, one of the things is that you learn forms, and the forms are called kata. And every time you go to training, you spend quite a lot of time doing these kata, and they become increasingly complex. And it's like just go through the motions. And then usually when you're getting close to black belt, the way that you do kata starts to change. And our school called it the bunkai. And what would happen when you were doing one of your kata, and usually the very advanced ones, is that he would line up 2 or 3 black belts and he would get them to move and organize them in particular ways and make particular attacks so that you understood as you were going through these motions, what was actually happening was you were having an imaginary fight. And when you saw all the things that your kata was meant to be countering, responding to, and doing in context, it suddenly gave you a huge lift to the way that you executed on the kata. And oftentimes, by the time you got here, this would be something you've done hundreds or thousands of times, and it just gives you that new piece. And I think for me, practices are kind of like that, right? Simple, prescriptive, start doing it differently like X. It's easy to wrap your head around. It's perhaps a little bit confronting. It doesn't require heaps of thinking, but you can get in motion. But if all you ever do is the practices, you're always going to be doing a whole bunch of things that you don't necessarily really understand why they exist or why you should be doing them. And the moment that comes where you start to go, actually, what are the principles that this practice is driving? What is the why behind it? And you got to pick the moment. If you go too principle based too early, I think for a lot of people, it's just theoretical and abstract. They need to begin motion. But if you want to sustain and accelerate it, that's where you've got to go to the principles. Let's look at the why. And then as we use the why, we can start to really change things.
Maybe if I
Nice.
can,
Of
when I
course.
remember how I started learning this stuff, learning Agile, learning Scrum, learning Kanban, I was not really passionate. I had not a lot of passion. I want to just come to the meat fast. And then they talked about the Scrum principles, about the Kanban principles, about the SAFe principles, and about the House of Lean, and more and more. And I always said to myself, I just want to do it. Just tell me how to do it. So I think it's really difficult you need some kind of maturity to realize or to see you need these principles to adapt your way of doing it. Otherwise, you're just doing recipes one after the other. And maybe I don't know. I think in my case it was the school system. There was always one right solution, and if you had this one right solution, of course you were doing this way. You don't do experiments with math. It is just this way. There's no principles. It's just rules. And when I remember how I learned English in school, I think if my English teacher now watched the show, I don't know if he's alive or not. I don't tell you what I wish. No, but he would say that's not really you're not doing it right. But it feels right for me at the moment, whatever I'm saying, and even if it's wrong. So it needs some kind of maturity. It needs some kind of understanding what is important, what is part of the game, and then playing in this direction. So I think we will train differently and we'll learn to follow recipes, and it's nice just knowing what you're doing. But now with the time, I think principles. Not I think I know principles is the way I'm working. I always step back, think about the principles, and then embed it in work. But the reason why people don't doing it is it needs a maturity, and it gives you some kind of uncertainty if you're not used to doing it.
Yeah, it's just the act of just tell me what to do. People just would like to. I know that I like to just follow a structure, build that routine. Just I want to understand how do I disassemble an engine. Well, you start at certain parts, and then you go to some other parts, and then you go to some other parts. It would be nice to sort of follow that same stuff. Yeah. So I fully understand. It's pretty tough to, and it takes also a lot of time, I think, to always want to have to reflect. And sometimes it's also nice to just, as like like as muscle memory to just go through certain motions. So it's difficult. So I'm gonna break the cycle, Mark, because I'm gonna give the microphone now to Stephan about the following question. So if you have the ability to really embed this reflection, this way of reflection on lean agile values and principles in your in an organization, how would you do it, and how should others do it, Stephan?
Very good question. And based on what we just discussed so far, I think we as SPCs, as change agents, also as leaders, we have to be trained first to understand what's going on, right? We have to learn the practices, as we heard from Mark. If you start a kata, you don't ask why, you just do it. You follow your master, you follow your black belt. And then over the time, you learn that, oh, now I'm leaving the comfort zone. I'm becoming a facilitator for change. I'm becoming a facilitator for collaboration. And as we heard before as well, I need coaching as well, as Niko said, right? Because if I don't have the other black belts in the room where I can replicate, where I can mirror stuff, where I can learn, where I can discuss, I'm probably not moving forward. So yeah, it's easy to stick to the practices. train leaders, and in two of the oncoming reprises, we'll talk about how are you exemplifying and how are you leading. And first of all, you need training, good basis, good basics. Otherwise, you don't become a true leader. And that's probably my advice. And that's why we have the implementation roadmap. Train people and then start trains, right? Let's show the evidence. Does it work? If it doesn't work, okay, let's go back to the basics. And then let's build increment on increment to become better over the time. That will be, my reflection of the last few years. What's probably important for me.
Nice. Thank you.
I think we have to do a Karate Kid movie with Safe so that people understand this better.
Yes.
And Mark
Wax in,
will be
wax
leading.
out.
Mark will be leading. He's the master.
Mr. My Marky. No, okay, that didn't really work. Has any one of you ever sort of mildly influenced decision making by, for instance, at a management review, you would hang a huge poster with either the company values or maybe the agile principles or the agile values or the SAFe principles? Ever done anything like that?
Indirectly. I think
Tell
one of the
us.
things I like to do whenever I'm doing a team formation at any level, getting a set of agreed team values, a social contract is always one of the things that I look to do. And one of the things that I always flavor into that is how are we going to deal with conflict? So literally a conflict navigation agreement. And I love to have one of those hung on the wall or easy to find on the Miro, because there's a moment, and if the moment comes where, people are behaving badly, not that anybody would ever do that in a workshop, what you get to do is to go, hang on, let's just turn to this poster. How are we doing living that at the moment? And, when people express that set of values or that set of agreements, it's them creating rules for themselves. And so instead of you saying, here, let me tell you, you're not living this value, or you should be thinking like this, which, is a disaster as a coach, I can say, hey, how are you doing living up to the agreements you made with each other?
Yeah.
And Niko, I'm sure with your
And it's
systemic
right
coaching,
there.
you've been down this path.
Exactly. Or maybe if I add a small thing, I just love in manipulating, because I'm sometimes not sure if I manipulate people or if I talk with people. So I don't drink coffee, I don't smoke, but I'm always out with the people who are smoking and with the people on the coffee machine, because sometimes you can have time to just ask the questions, not like coaching. It's different, because coaching, you need an okay from the people, but you can ask questions like, how is work at the moment? Do you feel in flow? Oh no. When was the last time you've been in flow? So we can start asking questions so the next retrospective, maybe they will find the solution faster. So as a coach, you don't wait for the events to happen. You create these events every time when you talk with people. And that's, maybe it's my manipulation, talking with people outside meetings, but I think that's normal.
Yeah, probably to conclude that a little bit, and I'm jumping back to the All Blacks, right? The All Blacks have some values and rules, and one of the rules is clean up your shit. If they leave the room after a game, it's spotless. If you look at other rooms, it's a mess. And that's what I like this idea, Ali. You don't have to hang up a poster, but how do you materialize values and rules in a way that it's second nature? You just do it, right?
Yeah, and it's just, in a way, you're actually, I tend to say you do manipulate the environment a little bit, and therefore you manipulate, maybe a little bit too harsh of a word. I think it's influence. So you design the environment which might influence decision making. So yeah, that's okay. There's a lot of, I think, if we listen back to this recording, there's a lot of fantastic copyrightable one-liners in this episode, I guess. So talking about one-liners, if we try to summarize this dimension into one sentence, what would that be? I am going to start with Stephan.
I might sound a little bit like a teacher, but each transformation is different context-wise and needs much more than practices and methods, right? And therefore, mindset, values, and principles for me are the guidelines or journey with then comes up with effective and efficient actions.
Thank you so much. Mark?
It's a long sentence for me this week. I think it's okay for a practitioner to start with practices. We chatted about that. But if you're going to be a great SPC and an amazing change agent, you've got to be deep on the principles. Because when people say we're different, we're special, that won't work here. They're talking about practices. The way you help them step into stuff is being able to go to the principles. And if all you know is the practices, you're only ever going to be a line cook. You're never going to be a chef.
Ooh,
That's a good one.
Nice. That's another copyrightable one-liner.
I'm hungry now. Oh, great.
Niko, how about you?
Yeah, I always say principles are like physics. You cannot ignore them just because you think I'm special. So yeah, principles are physics.
Nice. Thank you. If I would try to summarize it, it's that lean agile values and principles are actually the things that provide flexibility in how you organize your work. The rest can be adjusted. Values and principles typically remain stable. And I did write something else with just next to it, which is my second sentence. And as a moderator of this episode, I can of course give myself the time to also mention the second sentence, which is that people that don't understand that actually it's all about these values and principles. I figured out that they tend to criticize frameworks. They tend to criticize practices and have endless amount of debates about practices. For some reason, I just have never understood that. All right. I'm going to measuring growth. So, all right, if you are an SPC and out of everything that you can measure, you need to select one measurement. Which one would that be? I'm going to start this time with Niko.
I'm laughing because I'm seeing people cheating and moving things around while you were talking. It's easy to say everything with exemplify is wrong because it's not leading by example. It's about mindset. So I don't know what these measurements are here. So these are per principle wrong. No, we can argue later. I just want to make some fun. So I've chosen that leaders demonstrate growth mindset by showing openness to new ideas and so on and so on. So openness for me is an important thing. It's like Stephan said, it's an open book. You can read them. I think this is really important. And also having a growth mindset, meaning knowing that you're not finished. You still have chances to learn, or you have to learn. I once was in a talk at a university while my kids were somewhere else in a children's university. Uh, the guy was a brain professor, and he told us even 5 minutes before you die, your brain still works and learns. So 5 minutes before you die, it stops learning, it does something else. So you cannot say I'm old now, I'm not able to learn anything. You can, and so it's also part of the thing, understanding growth mindset. You're not finished. You have to learn, and being open book, stick to your values, grow others. Yeah, that's the thing I see here in this dimension. I don't know how to measure it, but I like it.
Maybe it's me, but these quite a few of these measure and grow elements, metrics, they are surprisingly similarly. But Mark, you chose another one, even though there's quite some overlap with the one that Niko chose. Why did you choose that one?
When I was voting, I was like, which one do I choose? And to be honest, one of the things I see when I look at these measure and grows is there's a lot of overlap. And Niko's was probably the first one that I settled on. And then I went a different way. And then as we've chatted today, I'm actually in a different place. And I chose leaders identify and overcome existing fixed mindsets that need to be challenged in order to embrace new ways of working. And I think the nuance of the difference for me is the one Niko chose was about the leader. And I think this one's more about the leader building leaders, right?
Mhm.
it's how's the leader proactively leaning in to show their people and prove that the organization wants to be different.
Mhm.
So that's what headed me here.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I would agree with
Stephan.
that. Sorry, Ollie. I would agree with that. I think the one I've chosen, it's really important for the person themselves, because getting feedback, receiving feedback, asking for feedback is part of it. So I think it's really like that's the next step that Mark has chosen, how to develop others. Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, Stephan.
Yeah, I'm smitten with Niko's and Mark's rational. But I'm going back to I'm being predictable. I chose the one: leaders exemplify lean principles by focusing on value, respect for people and culture, flow, innovation, and relentless improvement. Because this, by focusing, it's more the focus than exemplifying. Exemplifying will be dealt with in the next reprise, right? But this focus means you understood what you have learned during training, and now you can contextualize and you help people create an environment where they can really thrive and do what they're supposed to do, right? So that was my choice, and that's my rationale behind it.
I don't. Maybe it's me, but I mean, so in this episode, we literally every single one of us chose a different measurement. I chose a different one as well, even though it sounds extremely familiar and similar to the rest with all of you would mentioned. I chose the one about leaders fulfill their responsibilities by exemplifying the core values of alignment, transparency, respect for people, and relentless improvement. So that is again focusing on the person, the leader, him or herself. And somehow I read the other ones and I was like, well, but if the leader um, actually shows these values, so exemplifies alignment, transparency, respect for people, and relentless improvement, that's sort of all that a leader should do? Question mark! Exclamation mark! So I was kind of torn about, should it be sort of leader focusing outward or should it be leader focusing inward? I have no idea. So I'm not sure about this measurement for this dimension, to be honest.
Yeah, they definitely feel like they need some work.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is missing? Actually, I see that two of you have identified something that might be missing. Niko.
Yeah, for me, it was something missing because it comes out from an experience I had. It was a leader who was really able to answer every question people had and bring them back to the core values. So we did LPM, Lean Portfolio Management, together. We introduced that in his company, and he was on the C level, and he was really able to explain everything. And if you asked about the core values of SAFe, he had examples. And I think this would be nice, not only management thinking they are agile or having a certificate and a proof they are agile, leaders being able to exemplify, like saying stories about, saying about that's how we're doing it, and that's the value behind of it. That was really a huge experience, and I think I would like to have this somehow in the measurement toolkit, that people realize, oh, that's an important thing. We have to care about it.
Haha. So didn't you therefore also select the same measurement as which one I selected just now? Isn't that the same? Isn't that
It's
leaders
quite
fulfill their responsibility to exemplify core values?
it was inspiration when I saw what you've chosen. It was just missing the part of being able to explain it, and that's why I put it there. It's same tomato, but it's a nicer one.
I almost won.
Yeah,
Ah,
almost.
no, just kidding.
I have too
Wait
much
for the
kids.
full
I
phrase.
can never lose the conversation. No.
I'm gonna be contentious here. Because the problem that I had with a lot of the measure and grows, and actually the reaction I had as you were sharing, is for me, the principles are actually more important than the values in terms of the conversation I'd like to have. And the reason is usually if I look at a company's values, right, pretty much any company I've ever worked with, if you went and looked at their published values, they're not that dissimilar to the ones that we talk about in Lean and Agile. And I would rather put the company's values at the center of every conversation from a value perspective then go, here's another parallel set of values. And I might shape the interpretation of the company values in the conversation a little bit through the Lean Agile bend. But generally, you'll see same idea, different words. I've never worked with a big company that didn't have respect for people somewhere, somehow in one of their company values. So I fixate much more on the principles, because the principles are thinking tools. And that would be the measurement I would add, would be leaders regularly use the safe Lean Agile principles to explore challenges and inform decisions. Do you use these things, or do you just memorize them for an exam?
Even though in the Measure and Grow, in the list of Measure and Grow metrics, the last one is actually, and I quote, leaders exhibit and teach the 10 safe Lean Agile principles. So why didn't you choose that one?
Because it was way too wishy-washy for me.
It's
I fully
actions.
understand.
I want to
I
sit in
fully
a leadership conversation where they're able to sit there and go, what are the Lean U-curve trade-offs that are informing this decision, right? How are we managing the balance between variability and predictability in this conversation? Not, I can stand at the front of the room and tell you what they are. It's every day in the meetings and workshops where the future of the company is mapped. Are these used as thinking tools? Because I've seen lots of people who can talk about in the classroom.
But using it in a difficult meeting to guide difficult discussions, to make complex decisions, just makes it so much harder. Completely true. Completely true. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for your stories, for the discussions, the going back and forth, and the examples that you brought in today. With that, we are at the end of this episode. So I'd like to thank everyone who is here for just the episode. Thanks a lot for being here and being here until all the way at the end. We do have a retrospective as part of every episode. So for whomever is joining the video feed, we'll have a moment for retrospective to see what we can keep doing, more doing, do less, stop doing, or start doing. But for the others, thanks a lot.
And we'll see you next week for Leading by Example.